Standing by to pick up the count in 10 seconds. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. T-minus 9 minutes and counting.
T-minus 9 minutes.
We are now just 9 minutes away from the launch of Space Shuttle Discovery on a mission to the International Space Station. All the countdown events are being controlled by the ground launch sequence here in the firing room. Here is First Lady Laura Bush, who has come to witness today's launch, along with the invited guests and astronauts' families.
So did Victor get one?
My camera's dead.
Coming up now, the final program pre-launch commands are going to be put on aboard Discovery, and the pilot is going to activate switches to connect the fuel cell essential buses.
OTC, DLT, essential buses connected to fuel cell. TC copy.
3 good fuel cells connected to the orbiter. Standing by for retraction of the crew orbiter access arm.
CLS is go for orbiter access arm retract.
Discovery OTC, it's time for you to return to flight. Our hopes and prayers ride with you. Godspeed, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
And OTC Discovery, thank you very much.
That was orbiter test conductor Mark Taffet here in firing room 3. The rotating service structure can be moved back into position very quickly if there's an emergency in about 28 seconds.
GRPS OTC, start your recorders, please.
This GRPS recorder's running.
That's the auxiliary power unit chart recorders that are being started.
The PLT OTC, perform APU pre-start.
Auxiliary power unit pre-start procedure now being performed by pilot Jim Kelly, and he will actually start those at T-minus 5 minutes and counting by flipping switches in the cockpit. Good pre-start on the APUs.
OTC, PLT, AP pre-start complete. 3 great talkbacks.
Governor Jeb Bush there with the Laura Bush.
Is Mom with you?
She's right here.
Is Mom with you?
She's right there. She's right here.
I'm not getting confused. It's Deb and
Standing by for APU start now.
CLS is go for orbiter APU start.
PLT OTC, perform APU start.
Inward.
And CDR OTC, reconfigure heaters.
CDR doesn't work.
Copy.
Space Shuttle main engine fuel valve heaters being turned off. Main engine helium purge sequence coming up.
PLT, APU start complete. 3 good APUs.
T-minus 4 minutes. 4 minutes and counting.
Okay, let's go for purge 4.
Main engine purge now underway, and the orbiter's aerosurface profile test is beginning. You see Discovery's rudder moving. Main engine gimbal check, or steering check coming up. Verified the main engines now are in start position.
CLS is go for ET LO2 pressurization.
And now we should have retraction of the gaseous oxygen vent arm. The GOX vent arm will pull away from the top of the external tank, the VNCAP so-called.
OTC, PLT. OTC, PLT, customer member cleared, no unexpected errors.
Copy that, thank you. Discovery OTC, close and lock your visors and initiate O2 flow.
T-minus 2 minutes.
Visors and O2 flows in work.
CLS is go for ET LH2 pressurization.
MS5.
External tank bipod heaters now being deactivated.
One minute, 30 seconds.
Sound suppression water system now being armed. T-minus 1 minute. Solid rocket booster joint heaters now being deactivated. Final check of the solid rocket booster commands. Joint heaters being turned off. Blocks and LH2 fill and drain valves closed. Solid rocket booster flight data recorders activated. Standing by for the handoff to Discovery's computers. T-minus 31 seconds. The handoff has occurred. Discovery's computers now controlling. Firing chain is armed.
20.
Sound suppressor water system is being activated. Brain safe systems armed. T-minus 10 seconds. Go for main engine start. 7, 6, 5. 3 engines up and burning. 3, 2, 1, and liftoff of Space Shuttle Discovery, beginning America's new journey to the Moon, Mars, and beyond. And the vehicle has cleared the tower.
Houston's now controlling. Commander Ali Collins confirmed Discovery is rolling onto a course for rendezvous with the International Space Station. This is a view from a camera mounted on Discovery's external fuel tank. 3 engines on Discovery are now throttling down to 2/3 throttle to prepare the spacecraft to pass through the area of maximum air pressure and go supersonic. minutes since launch. Discovery speed now 900 miles per hour.
Discovery Houston, go at throttle up.
Discovery is go with throttle.
All systems remain go for Discovery. Altitude now 9 miles, 6 miles northeast of the launch pad. Since launch, Discovery's already consumed more than 2.25 million pounds of propellant. It weighs less than half of what it did at liftoff. Speed now 2,000 miles per hour. Altitude 18 miles, 14 miles northeast of the Kennedy Space Center. Standing by now for burnout and jettison of the twin solid rockets. Booster officer confirms clean separation of the solid rocket boosters. Discovery now on its 3 main engines, second stage. Speed now 3,030 miles per hour. Altitude 33 miles, 40 miles downrange from the Kennedy Space Center. Discovery's orbital maneuvering system engines are now firing to assist its climb to orbit. They'll fire for about 2 minutes and 19 seconds. This again a view from camera on the external fuel tank for Discovery.
Discovery Houston, 2-engine Zaragoza.
Discovery is 2-engine Zaragoza.
That call that Discovery could perform a transatlantic landing at a Spanish Air Force base in Zaragoza, Spain if required. 3 engines continue to operate well. All systems in good condition. Altitude now 254,000 feet or about 48 miles. Discovery speed 4,500 miles per hour. 85 miles northeast of the Kennedy Space Center. About 5 minutes left until cutoff of Discovery's 3 main engines. Discovery's altitude now 59 miles. Speed 5,500 miles per hour.
Discovery Houston, negative return.
Discovery is negative return.
That call confirming Discovery's gained too much speed and altitude to return to a landing at the Kennedy Space Center if that were required. All systems remain go for Discovery. Just over 4 minutes to cut off of the main engines. During that time, Discovery will more than triple its current speed to reach the 17,400 miles per hour required to achieve Earth orbit. Discovery 200 miles northeast of the Kennedy Space Center now. Altitude 65 miles, speed 6,700 miles per hour.
Discovery Houston, press to ATO.
Discovery is pressed to ATO.
That call indicating Discovery could reach a lower than planned but safe orbit on only 2 engines if needed. All 3 engines continue to operate well at full throttle. Speed now 8,000 miles per hour. Altitude 67 miles, 300 miles northeast of the Kennedy Space Center.
Discovery Houston, single engine Ops 3.
Discovery is single engine Ops 3.
Discovery can perform a transatlantic landing on only 1 engine if required. All continuing to go well. Altitude 67 miles, 350 miles northeast of the Kennedy Space Center. Discovery speed now 9,200 miles per hour. Discovery is rolling to a heads-up position now to assist its performance as it finishes its ascent to orbit.
Discovery Houston, press to MECO and single engine Zaragoza 104.
Press to MECO and single engine Zaragoza 104.
Those calls that Discovery could reach its planned orbit on only 2 engines if needed. All 3 continue to operate well at full throttle. Just under 2 minutes to cut off of the main engines now.
Discovery Houston, we see a nominal shutdown plan. You will be go for the plus X and go for the pitch maneuver.
Nominal shutdown plan, go for the plus X and go for the pitch maneuver.
Good copy.
About 1.5 minutes to cut off of the main engines. Those calls confirming that the crew is go to do a plus X maneuver after jettison of the external tank to clear.
Discovery Houston, single engine press 104.
Single engine press 104.
Plus X maneuver to clear the tank, and also then a pitch maneuver that will provide handheld photography by the crew through the windows of the vehicle of the external tank after it's jettisoned. 1 minute to cut off of the main engines now. Discovery speed 13,300 miles per hour, altitude 65 miles, 615 miles from the Kennedy Space Center. Discovery's 3 engines are now beginning to throttle back to prevent the spacecraft from experiencing forces in excess of 3 times that of Earth's gravity as it continues to accelerate. Speed now 14,800 miles per hour, altitude 63 miles, 700 miles northeast of the Kennedy Space Center. 30 seconds to cut off of the main engines. Discovery speed now 16,000 miles per hour. Standing by for cutoff Discovery's 3 main engines. Booster officer confirms main engine cutoff for Discovery. Standing by now for jettison of the external fuel tank. Live television as Discovery jettisons external fuel tank. All normal with the cutoff of Discovery's main engines. Discovery performing a maneuver to fire its jets and ensure clean separation from the tank.
Discovery, we have a good plus X maneuver.
Copy the good plus X. We saw a nominal MECO. OMS 1 is not required.
Nominal MECO, OMS 1 not required.
Okay, Rick. Well, we're all set down here. We got about 9 minutes of work left to get this program back into space. We'll keep a close eye on things during that time, and we'll be with you all the way.
Thank you, Bob. We're sure looking forward to it.
Launch Director Bob Seek giving a message to the crew and an answer from Commander Rick Hauk. The clock will resume in just 5 seconds from now. 3, 2, 1, T-minus 9 minutes and counting. The countdown events are now being controlled by the ground launch sequencer from now until the T-minus 31 second point, when we begin the switch over to the onboard redundant set launch sequencer. The ground launch sequencer is part of the launch processing system and operates by relaying commands to the onboard computers, which then report back to the LPS system that the commands have been executed. 8 minutes 30 seconds and counting. The primary job of the onboard computers is to check that all of the launch commit criteria, such as propellant loads, temperatures, pressures, and other measurements, are normal and staying within their prescribed limits.
And Flight OTC, I'd like to have you proceed with the transmission of the stored program command.
Coming up the 8 minute point, T-minus 8 minutes and counting.
Flight 023.
The Orbiter Test Director has requested that Houston send the stored program commands, which is the final update on antenna management and frequency changes. This ensures that the orbiter has the latest information to speak to various ground tracking stations as it circles the Earth.
Roger. Flight, proceed with transmission of the stored program command.
T-minus 7 minutes, 30 seconds and counting, and the ground launch sequencer has started retracting the orbiter crew access arm. This is the walkway used by the astronauts to enter the orbiter. In case of an emergency, the arm can be placed back into position within about 15 seconds.
Okay, we copy.
T-minus 7 minutes and counting. The orbiter access arm moving away from the orbiter now into its park position. T-minus 6 minutes, 30 seconds and counting. Pilot Dick Covey will be asked to set the switches in the cockpit to the pre-start position for the auxiliary power unit, or APUs, at the 6-minute point. This consists of positioning a number of switches and verifying that they're in the proper position, then throwing the 3 propellant isolation valve switches, which allow the hydrazine to start flowing towards the APU.
I'd like to have you perform the APU pre-start. APU pre-start's in work.
We've passed the 6-minute point, T-minus 5 minutes, 54 seconds and counting.
OTC, PLT, APU pre-start's complete. Pre-grade talkbacks. Copy.
T-minus 5 minutes, 30 seconds and counting. Mission Control has transmitted the signal to start the onboard flight recorders. The 2 recorders will collect measurements of shuttle systems during flight and be played back afterwards. At the 5-minute point, the orbiter test conductor will ask pilot Dick Covey to start the auxiliary power units, which provide hydraulic power for steering and controlling flight surfaces. T-minus 5 minutes and counting.
Go for orbiter APU start. And BLT, perform the APU pre-start. Roger, and work.
Pilot Dick Covey now is flipping the 3 switches in the cockpit to start each of the 3 APUs. The liquid oxygen replenishing of the LOX tank has been terminated at this point, and the liquid oxygen fill and drain valve is closed. 4 minutes, 30 seconds.
You see the APUs are up and running. Copy that.
The auxiliary power unit's up and running, according to pilot Dick Covey.
CDR reconfigure heaters.
Roger, that's complete.
Coming up on the 4-minute point in the count. The crew would normally close their visors, but will delay that. The main engine final purge sequence is underway. The orbiter flight control surfaces, such as elevon, speed brakes, and rudders, are now being moved through a pre-programmed pattern to verify that they're ready for launch. T-minus 3 minutes, 30 seconds. All 3 engines now being moved in a pattern to verify their readiness to support the ascent flight control. After going through their paces, they'll be aligned to their start position. We're coming up on the 3-minute point in the count. At T-minus 2 minutes, 55 seconds, the start of the external tank liquid oxygen pressurization will begin. 3 minutes and counting. and the gaseous nitrogen purges of the main engines will be terminated.
Go for ET-LO2 pressurization.
The ground launch sequencer has started to retract the gaseous oxygen vent hood or beanie cap on the external tank.
I'd like to have you clear caution warning memory and verify no unexpected errors.
The computers will make a final check to ensure the vent arm is fully retracted at the 37-second point. T-minus 2 minutes, 30 seconds and counting. Ground supplies of hydrogen and oxygen for the orbiter fuel cells has been turned off. Discovery is now running on its onboard reactants. Coming up on the 2-minute point in our countdown. T-minus 2 minutes and counting. Liquid hydrogen replenish of the external tank has stopped and pressurization to flight level is underway. The vehicle is now isolated from all ground propellant and fluid loading equipment.
Roger, that's complete.
TLS is go for ET-LH2 pressurization.
T-minus 90 seconds and counting. Less than 2 minutes away from the launch of STS-26 and its crew of 5.
1 second, future failure.
And we have heard that the clock will hold at 31 seconds.
TDST, it's a cabin pressure rated change. Okay, copy. GCL.
We're anticipating the clock will hold at T-minus 31 seconds due to a failure. We have not heard what that is yet.
It's going down. Probably due to the increase in the O2 going in from the suits. Okay, with your concurrence, we'll clear the air and proceed.
T-minus 50 seconds and counting. We're going to clear the air and proceed. Had a concurrence from the launch director to proceed.
And if we clear, we will not stop at 31. Is that true? That's correct, MTD.
We will not stop the clock. The orbiter computers have positioned the vent doors, T-minus 31 seconds. We have a go for auto sequence start. Discovery's 4 redundant computers have approved. T-minus 23 seconds and counting. The SRB nozzle profile. T-minus 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10. The go for main engine start.
5.9 nautical miles, downrange distance 3 nautical miles.
Discovery, going throttle up.
Discovery giving a go at throttle up, 3 engines at 104%, velocity 3,200 feet per second, altitude 10.8 nautical miles, downrange distance 8 nautical miles. Seconds from solid rocket booster separation. 1 minute 45 seconds, 3 engines at 104%. Velocity 4,800 feet per second, altitude 20 nautical miles, downrange distance 19 nautical miles. Standing by for solid rocket booster separation. Solid rocket boosters have separated. 2 minutes, 20 seconds. 3 engines still running 104%. 5,600 feet per second velocity, 31.8 nautical miles. Altitude, downrange distance, 38 nautical miles. Three APUs still running at normal speed, 3 good fuel cells. We'll be hearing some call-ups here shortly from the Capcom about the capability to reach transatlantic sites. Velocity 6,200 feet per second, altitude 41 nautical miles, downrange distance 60 nautical miles.
Discovery, 2-engine Marone.
Roger.
That call-up indicating Discovery may be able to achieve a transatlantic abort at Marone if that were to become necessary. Return status and mission control positions all report go. 3 engines still 104%, velocity 7,600 feet per second, altitude 53 nautical miles, downrange distance 107 nautical miles. Standing by for negative return.
Discovery, negative return.
Negative return.
That call-up indicates Discovery now can no longer turn around and return to the launch site in the event of an abort. 4 minutes, 20 seconds, velocity 8,700 feet per second, altitude 59 nautical miles, downrange distance 148 nautical miles. Standing by for press to ATO call.
Press to ATO, select Banjul.
Look out.
Call-up indicates Discovery could reach an abort to orbit on 2 engines if that were to become necessary. 5 minutes, 3 seconds, velocity 10,300 feet per second, altitude 65.7 nautical miles, downrange distance 203 nautical miles. Standing by for a press to MEGO call.
Discovery, press to MECO, group Banjul 109.
Roger.
Crew given their press to main engine cutoff call, indicating they can proceed to normal main engine cutoff on 2 engines if that were to become necessary.
Discovery, performance nominal.
Roger, nominal.
Six minutes, 10 seconds, velocity 13,900 feet per second, altitude 68 nautical miles, downrange distance 323 nautical miles.
Discovery, single engine Banjul 104.
Roger.
That call-up indicates Discovery could achieve a single engine landing at Banjul if that were to become necessary. Banjul, one of the transatlantic abort sites. Minutes, 50 seconds, velocity 16,400 feet per second, altitude 66 nautical miles, downrange distance 405 nautical miles. Guidance officer reports good navigation aids, and main engine cutoff is expected at 8:33.
Discovery, single engine press, 104.
Roger.
Discovery's crew told that they can press on to main engine cutoff in the event of a 2-engine failure. 3 engines running at 104%, 3 good APUs, 3 good fuel cells, velocity 20,000 feet per second, altitude 61 nautical miles, downrange distance 527 nautical miles. Engines beginning to throttle now to maintain 3 Gs. Mark 8 minutes, velocity 22,500 feet per second, altitude 59 nautical miles, downrange distance 619 nautical miles. At about 82% throttles now, maintaining 3 Gs on the vehicle. 10 seconds away from main engine cutoff. Velocity 24,600 feet per second. Altitude 59 nautical miles, downrange distance 700 nautical miles. Standing by for main engine cutoff. Main engine cutoff confirmed. Discovery's 3 main engines have now shut down as programmed.
Discovery, nominal MECO, ohms 1 not required.
Normal main engine cutoff has occurred now.
Okay, thank you, Houston.
Crew informed that ohms 1 is not required. There'll be an ohms 2 to round out the orbit at the expected altitude. Standing by for external tank separation.
Discovery, your go for APU shutdown on time.
Roger.
APUs provide hydraulic power to operate the aerodynamic services and to gimbal the engines.